I will tell you that this is my first semester actually using groups in D2L in my information systems course. And so I am still exploring and learning some of the nuances. But as far as the setup is concerned, it's relatively simple. You just have to invest a little bit of time in planning what it is that you're going to do. Now, in Angel, they were called teams, and we use them for a variety of reasons. And in D2L, they are called groups. And so pretty straightforward to get started. On the communication tab, you click that drop down, and there is a groups area. And once you have that new area open, you need to create a new category. Now, I'll tell you how I'm using categories, and you all can decide what's the best practice for you. If you are planning on having just one group activity and you don't plan on having multiple groups that have different people registered on them, then you really only need to have one category, and you can just call it groups. But if you're like me and every week or every couple of weeks your group changes with new membership on those groups, then I create my categories a little bit differently. And a category is really nothing more than a way to manage your groups. And so I might call my groups, or my categories, I will list them by the actual activity that they're going to be doing. So for week 2, I would call it, the Technology Connection Group Project 1. And then on week 4, I might have a new category, Technology Connection Group Project 2. So that, or you could identify them by week 1 group project, week 2 group project. So you just need to think about in advance how you're going to organize those groups. Hopefully that makes sense. For the purpose of this activity, we'll do 2 so that I can show you groups without Dropboxes and discussions, and then groups with Dropboxes and discussions. So I'm going to call this Group Project 1, and then I'm going to put no Dropbox or discussion, just for the purpose of us so that we can keep it straight. So then you have this opportunity to put a description in, and that description can be actually for your benefit what those groups are going to be working on. So you might say, activity, week 2 activity where you have the students, do speeches or whatever it is. You would want to list that here in the descriptions. I'm just going to go ahead and copy what I have here, and we'll leave it at that. But in my actual course, I actually put what the students are working on for that week, because each week is different. Now, for enrollment type, you have a number of different options here. For number of groups with no auto enrollment, basically what you're going to be telling the system is how many groups you want. But it's not going to automatically enroll the students from your class list into those groups. You're going to manually put them on yourself. And that takes a little bit of work because you have to enroll them individually. But you might want to do that if you want to be the person who divvies up which members are on which group. Maybe you are actually in a blended class and you want to form the groups in class and then build them later on that evening so that they have an interaction area. That would mean that you would want to be the person to place them on the groups. Then we have the option of groups of number. That's where you tell D2L how many people you want per group. So if you say you want groups of 3, then you'll get groups of 3 from your roster pre-created for you or automatically created for you by D2L. If you say number of groups, you will get X number of groups created, and it will balance the enrollment on those groups as best it can, but if the number of groups you pick doesn't evenly divide the number of students on your class list, then you will end up with a group that has more members than another. So maybe you have groups, maybe you decide you want groups of 5. So you might end up a number of groups. You may say you want 5 groups. Well, all of those groups have 5, but because you have 26 students, you end up with one group that has 6 on it. So that's how that would work. But these that don't say no enrollment or self-enrollment, the system will automatically create those groups for you. Groups of number with self-enrollment means you are going to pre-create groups, but the students are going to get to pick which group they go into, but only up to a certain number of people. So you will have groups of 3, but the students get to pick which group they want to be on. So maybe you have topics that you want the students, or teams that you want the students divided up on, and each team is going to have a different responsibility. The students could sign up for that. It's kind of like at a picnic where you want, 3 desserts, but no more than 3. So that's how that one works. And then number of groups would be, you have a set number of groups and the students get to sign up which group they want to be on. So there might only be 3 choices and the students have to pick from those 3 choices. And then, of course, the complicated one is number of groups. Number of number, which means you will have a certain number of groups, and those groups may only have a certain number of people on them, and the students can sign up for it. So that's a lot of information. Up to this point, I have only created groups of number in my class because I want my students to have a certain number of people on the team and not too many, not too few. So I have been doing groups of 3 because triads tend to work best in group work. Because I'm working in a sort of demo class that only has a limited number of students in it, I'm just going to put 2 and I'll be dividing my students up into pairs, which is certainly another option that you can do. And then if I have the option here for auto-enrolling new users, that means anybody new gets enrolled in your class are going to automatically go on a new group. You may or may not want to do that depending on at what point you are in the semester that you're adding these people. If it's in the very first week, maybe yes, but if it's in the second week, when we still have the option to add people, someone new has switched into your course, then maybe you want to place them on a particular team. I tend to leave that unchecked. And then you randomize the users in group. That just means that it's going to randomly pick the people in your group as opposed to going straight through and doing it alphabetically. Now, for the purpose of this first set of groups, I'm not going to check these boxes to set up discussion areas or Dropbox folders. I'm simply going to hit the Save button. And then what I have now is I have this interface that shows that I have group project 1, no Dropbox or discussion, and then I have these 5 groups that it was able to create from my membership in this class. So this class has 9 people in it. Does that make sense so far?
Yes, it does.
Okay. All right, good. So now if I want to see the members of the group, I can click on this number here and it will show me who is in this group. And I can do that for all of these groups. If I want to change the name on my groups, I would click on that, and that is going to take me to this interface where I could actually make changes to the group name. It doesn't give you the opportunity like Angel does in the beginning to put this sort of addition to the group name that helps you remember what assignment you were doing before the groups get created. So what you would have to do if you were interested in renaming your group something is while you are here in this interface, you would have to click on this link and change it to say Group 1 Project 1, Group 2 Project 2, Group 3 Project, Group 1 Project 1, Group 2 Project 1, Group 3 Project 1. If you wanted to specifically identify those groups so that you are aware of which category they fall into. From this view, you can see which category they fall into, and from this drop down here, once I have a second group, you'll see that I'll be able to change between my sets of groups, which are my categories. Let's see. What else did I want to do from within here? Well, you can choose to email a group individually by clicking that and hitting email, or you can select all of the groups and hit email, and then you'll be able to email everyone. And then you can delete them individually, or you can delete them all at once. Now, one thing that I want to point out is that I don't want a group of 1 here. I want one group of 3 and the other groups of 2. So what I would do is I would click this drop down and I would look here where it says enroll users. And what I end up with is now this great interface that I really love a lot that shows me my students, it shows me the group, and then it shows me which group they are enrolled in. Well, I see that Mary Crowley is in group 5 all by herself. So what I might do is uncheck Mary from here and then add her to group 4 and hit save. And now I have reordered my groups a little bit. And then to get rid of group 5 altogether, I would simply check this box and then hit delete, and it's going to warn me. And then when I'm all done, now I'm down to just 4 groups, but they're balanced the way that I like. I think that's a really neat way to be able to organize my groups. Are there any other questions at this point in time?
Yes.
This simple process right here. Yes.
This is Hazel. I don't know if I'm interrupting somebody else or not. I don't think I am. But can you hear me okay?
I can, yes.
I had a question about the student view, and maybe you're going to do that. But my students, I did work with groups. I'm working with them now, but they have trouble locating their group discussion area. I don't know how to make that easier for them.
Okay, so let me go ahead. I'll use that as a good segue into the process of creating groups that actually have discussions as part of the process.
Okay.
I will say that I believe there is a way, though I have not done this. If you neglect to add a discussion for your groups as part of this initial development of group processes, you can add a discussion separately and make it a group discussion. But I don't think that I'm going to have time to go into that aspect of it. But I'll write up a quick guide with a tutorial on how to add a discussion or Dropbox if you neglected to do that when you were first creating your groups. So let's just create a new category, and we're going to call this Group Project 2. And with Dropbox and discussion. Now this takes a little bit more time because it asks you to fill out some information about what that discussion in Dropbox looks like. So we'll just tell it we want 3 groups. Number of groups, we'll put 3, which is a little bit different than what I did before where I created groups with a certain number of members on them. This time I'm just going to make 3 groups, and it will randomly generate that information. But this time I'm going to check the box to set up a discussion area and to set up a Dropbox folder. If you don't want Dropboxes, you only want discussion areas, then you would just check the box for set up discussion area only. And then I hit save. And the first thing it asks me is, what do you want to call your discussion area? Notice it says restricted discussion area. That means that it's restricted to groups. Well, for the purpose of this course, this particular course that I'm in, again, this is a demo course, and so it doesn't have anything else in it at this point, so I need to create a new forum, which ultimately might be a good idea even in a course that already has other discussions in it, because it would allow you to keep these in a separate forum. So I'm going to call this Group Discussions. That's my forum. And in that forum, it's then going to create my discussion topic. So Group Discussions, and I'm not going to put anything in the description, but you could, and I'll hit save. And then create and next. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it the information about my Dropbox. So we'll call this Group Project 2 Dropbox. And here you get to decide, this is just the Dropbox interface. So those of you who are here, if you haven't used a Dropbox yet, you've probably seen this if you've been through the training. You can turn the Turnitin originality reporting on. So if you have a group that's writing a paper together and you want it to go through Turnitin, you would check that box. Right now it's a group submission folder for Group Project 2. That's going to be the folder type. If it's a grade item, then I would need to connect it to the grade book. I might click here and call it Group Project 2 and tell it how many points this is going to be worth. I'm just going to leave the defaults here. This is going to be worth 10 points. All of that's going to stay the same, and I'll hit save. And then I'll put 10 points here because, you know, when you put in a Dropbox, you have to do all of those things, sometimes a couple of things twice. I would put my instructions for my Dropbox here. Submit your Group 2 project here. And you can have one neat thing about the groups in D2L is that when you create this Dropbox, if you only have your group leaders submit, the grade goes to everyone on the group. You don't have to manually go in and add that grade to every group member, which you did have to do in Angel, as I recall. So only the group leader should submit. Okay? And then when we get to ePortfolio, you'll be able to add things to ePortfolio. You could have added files or recorded audio, so it's just your typical Dropbox settings. And then the submission options, again, if I want unlimited files submitted and all submissions are kept, or do I just want one file per submission and I only want to keep the most recent. That's up to you how you decide that. And then I'll just click create. Okay, and it says it created 3 groups, 1 discussion forum that has, and it's going to have 3 forum topics in it. The forum topics are going to be Group 1's topic, Group 2 topic, Group 3 topic, and then 1 Dropbox folder, but everybody on the group has access to it. And then I'll click done. And now it looks like I didn't do what I needed to do. This is a bug within the system. We want save and close in here because we want that to go away. So I'm going to go communication and groups. And now I'll be back here at my group interface, and you see now I have 2 categories of groups. I have Group 1, which we saw before, and I have Group 2, which has my 3 groups, and I can see who's enrolled on them. And because I have 9 students on my class list, it just happens to be even. And I could come in here and I could rename them, and I can reorder them or change. If I end up with a husband and wife on a team and I don't want that, I would go to this drop down and I would pick enroll users, and that would allow me to sort of reorganize my teams if I wanted to. If these 2 had the same last name, I could change that. So that's pretty straightforward. When we go to content and discussions, we will now see that I have a new forum in here titled Group Discussions, and it has 3 topics in it. Group 1 topic, Group 2 topic, Group 3 topic. And I could come in here and I could rename these as well if I was interested, so that I knew that they went along with Project 2, and because right now they're not named very well, so I could come in here and rename these. But this is where your students will come, and then with the Dropboxes, and then I'll get to answering your question, Hazel, because it was a really good question. And then when I come to the Dropbox, I now see that there's a Dropbox. And so when the students come in here, I can see that it's a group submission box. This is a new icon for us. and then I can see that it's connected to the gradebook and that nothing has been submitted. So at this point, everything currently resides on the discussions, the Dropbox, and then I see my groups from going to communication and groups. None of this content has been moved to content lessons at this point. There's no content here. So if I wanted my students to have access to the discussion from the lessons area, or if I wanted my students to have access to the Dropbox from the lessons area without having to go to content and discussions or content and groups, I would need to add that here. So that's the first part of my answer to your question, Hazel, is for students to see this, you need to move it to the lessons into whatever module it is you're working on, if in fact you don't want them to have to go to the content discussion area. Now, if you've already done that and you want the students to, and you want to see the student access, then what I can tell you is that students need to be told that they need to go to communication and groups to see the group that they're in. Let me see if I can view a student here and I'll show you what I mean. So students can go communication and groups. And when they come here, and this isn't going to work because I'm actually not in as an actual student. So let me see if I can do it this way for you. You know, the IDTs have this role where we can actually impersonate just about anybody. So let me give you a true student perspective, and I will impersonate Lily. All right, so now when I go to communication and groups, Lily only sees the group that she is on. And so she can get to the topic from there. She can see who the other members of her group are. And she can email that group from right here.
Okay, that's good. I didn't realize that.
The students cannot see all of the groups, how many groups, who's on the other groups, all of that. The students can only see their specific enrollment. And you all would not have known this unless you had added the demo student to your course and then impersonated the demo student, because that's the only person that you can impersonate. So if you had added the demo student to your roster, placed the demo student on a group, and then impersonated that demo student, you would then be able to see everything that I'm able to see here.
Okay.
Now the other thing is, because I'm still impersonating Lily, you Big Bang Theory fans out there will recognize her picture. If you go to content and discussions, then you see that Lily only sees the discussion that she is a member of for that group. So this is where students would come and communicate with each other. They could do either email to each other, or they can communicate via group discussions. And then for my students who find that challenging, I say, listen, you guys need to go to your group discussion and evaluate everybody's schedule and what your personal and work life is like, and decide, are you going to expect people to interact here? Are you going to expect it to be via email inside of my courses, or are you going to hand each other your Gmail accounts or your Yahoo accounts and decide to interact that way? I leave that up to them to decide. Now, it could be that as part of your groups you say, hey, I have questions that I expect answered, and I expect them answered in the group discussion area. Well, that will be up to you to manage your group that way. And then the other thing is content and Dropbox. The students will see the Dropbox for Project 1, and then they can submit. And then you, the instructor, will come here and you will see all of the submissions for all of the groups in here. So you don't have multiple Dropboxes to go and visit. You just have this Dropbox area, and all of the groups will submit here. And when you grade, if you just have the leader submit the one project, if you give the leader a grade, everyone on that team will receive that grade. And there's even a message that pops up from D2L that says, hey, everybody on the group is going to get this grade, just so that you're reminded.
Nancy, what if you don't give them all the same grade because you have like a 12-point of participation engagement? So if people don't participate, they don't get the same grade that the ones that do all the work. So how do we grade those then? If one person submits, then how do we give everybody a different grade?
Right. So what I have had to do, and I will have to work through finessing this a little bit for you, is that what I have discovered is that the only way to do that is to give everybody the grade but don't publish it yet, and then go over to the grade book and tweak those grades as necessary. So for you, that may mean you give them the minimum that they can receive as a group, and then you add in the grade book what they received for that 12-point addition.
Okay.
That part has not been easy for me, but again, well, it's not been difficult, but it's not as smooth as I would like it to be. But I'm just learning, and I may come up with a better practice for that as I get more into groups this semester. I had an 8-week class, and so we're really, just now into my second go round of groups for them.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. That's about it. Does anybody have any questions besides the ones that I've already answered?
Thank you, Nancy.
All right.
Nancy, one question. There's no email tool within the group. If they want to email each other, they go to the regular email within the course, but not within their group.
If they go to communication and they go to groups, remember I'm logged in as Lily the student, there's this email icon right here.
Okay.
So to initiate an email just to my groups, I would click on that, and then to receive my email, I would go to the email tool.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right, you all, thank you very much. If you have any questions, please let me know, and we'll be posting the recording just as soon as we're all set with it.
Okay, this link works really well. Thanks for doing this.
Terrific. Thank you. I'm glad to hear it.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So go ahead and stop the recording.